Welcome back to another week of our Simply Sweet Sew Along, and we're picking up where we left off at the last session, which was, so this is really part two, where we're going to basically be putting all of our rows together. Last week, or the last time we met, we completed putting all of our blocks into rows, and it just took longer, which I always underestimate the length of time it's going to take to do that. So today, hopefully, we will get through putting all of our rows together, and then we're going to go ahead and add our inner and outer borders, which we'll have to put these together first, but we'll put make our inner and outer border strips, and then go ahead and sew those on today. And the goal will also be to go ahead and make our binding. So we're just going to go ahead and get started putting these rows together, but we don't want to get in a hurry on this next step. And the key that I have found is pin, and then pin some more, because that's going to just really improve, again, that overall accuracy. My rows laid out in the order we'll be putting them together, and that way we just kind of work in sections, so you're not sitting there with a big heavy quilt. So that's typically what I'll do, is just break it into sections like this. As we begin to pin, I usually go ahead and just start with one in the corner, making sure, again, everything matches up nicely. At that point, I go right to my first block seam. So where one block from one row connects to the block of another row, right here on that seam, because that's where you really want them to line up nicely. So go ahead and I use my poke pin method right here, poking it in about a 1/4 inch, making sure when it comes through on this side that it matches up right at that seam line on the other side. Then I come back and put one in the center of the block, and I think I'd probably be good, but again, I'd rather err on the side of pinning too much than not enough. All right, so in that one connecting the first block of our 2 rows, I used 5 pins. Next, I go right to the seam for the next block. We'll come back and pin this after we've gotten that seam to align first. And our last one. So I just make sure on the last ones that, again, that are the end of our blocks line up nicely. Put that pin in. Come back to the center. Make sure the point, and I can see through, but because it's the white, I can see through pretty easily. So I know right where that I'm hitting it at the right spot. It doesn't happen all the time. I usually have to pull it apart and kind of make sure, or look at the seam. All right. We are ready. I've already got my guide set up for 1/4 inch here. My stitch length I'm using, it's a 2 is what I'm using on my machine. And we are ready. Okay. We just connected our first row. Let's take a look. And you can see our seams lined up just perfectly there. Those lines are connecting. We didn't lose our point of our mini magnolias. I'm going to go ahead at this point and just keep sewing these seams, and hope you're joining me. Okay, so I've just finished sewing the sections that we had talked about, 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together, and then I sewed 5, 6, and 7 together. So now I'm going to come back through and go ahead and sew rows 1 and 2 to 3 and 4. And then finally we'll do one more seam connecting this section to this section. Okay, I just finished sewing those rows together. So kind of see it's looking good. It just needs a really good pressing now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start pressing. And I'm going to go ahead and set the seam first. All right, I'm going to keep working on this and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, we are done pressing our quilt and we can see what it's going to look like. Now that we're done putting all our rows together, we're going to switch our attention to our inner and outer border. Before we do that, we need to actually make our strips. Okay, to go ahead and make the inner border, I'm going to take one of my strips here. You have it running horizontally. And then we'll take our other strip. What we're going to do is we're just going to put all of our strips together and then we'll cut them to the desired length afterwards. So that's what we're focused on now, is just making our strips. So there we go. You basically have one strip, the bottom strip is running horizontally, and then you put another strip over it running vertically. And again, here's my favorite tool, my mini simple folded corners ruler, and I love using it for this process. So instead of doing a diagonal line, I just go ahead and cut now. And in this case, I'm also going to, let's see, click that. There we go. We've cut it off, and I'll pin. Go ahead and do that too. Add a couple pins where I need them. All right, so that's ready to be sewn. So if I didn't have this tool, I would do it this way. I would just simply take a ruler. Let's see. Draw that line. So this tool simply cuts that step out. It basically allows you don't have to mark your fabric, and you're also cutting it at the same time. Let's go ahead and just start the process now with our outer border. This will be a little easier, I think, to see. So I'm looking at the right side of it, and I'm looking at the wrong side for the vertical line. And you do it the exact same way, except in this case, oh wow, got to go to my larger one. So it's the first time I've used that on a video. All right, so this is the same tool, it's just larger, and you do it the same way. So I believe this one goes up, I think, to 3.5 inches, and this one will go up, I believe, to 6 inches. All right, so I'm ready to make my cut. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and keep repeating this process. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more strips. I'm going to go ahead and connect them the same way, and then we'll sew these together. Okay, we are at the machine and ready to sew both our inner and outer border. Everything's pinned. This should really be quick and easy. I'm going to do the same process with our outer border now. I almost forgot about our binding. Now's the best time to go ahead, since we're in the process of making all of our borders. Let's go ahead and make these strips as well. And we do it the same way as far as making our strips. We'll come back and press it later, but for now, let's go ahead and make our strips the same way we've been doing it. And I chose something that's a little bit more directional, so I do want to make sure this lines up nicely. Same process, but I'm just going to make sure when I pull it back, want to make sure they're going the right direction. My little scallops, so I think that'll work. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get these cut, pinned, and then sewn the same way we've just done all the rest. And then we'll have all of our strips for this project complete. All right, so we are ready to press up our strips. I've got my outer border here to use as our first example. So we want to press these open, but I'm going to go ahead first and just press them to the side and then come back and open it out. Because we use that tool, we're not having to come back behind and trim. We've already done that step. So that tool does really save a little bit of time. All right, so all of our outer border is trimmed up nicely. I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process for both the inner border and the binding, and then we'll be ready to start cutting and sewing our strips on. What I've done now is I went on ahead and just laid out our quilt, and I went on ahead and put our inner border, which is what I have is the white. I have that laid right on top and just aligned it with the top of my quilt all the way down. And so I can go ahead and cut this. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra just in case. We can always trim this up. So I just go an inch beyond. All right, and then I'm going to make the same thing for the other side. So I'm basically going to make two identical strips. I'm not going to pin this, but I go slow enough that I can constantly align and make sure it stays straight. So you can see I'm just kind of moving it. I just stop and move it because you don't want this to be pulling the quilt in a direction you don't want it to go, or stretching it or anything like that. So I want it to have lots of give. And then again, using my left hand as a guide. Okay, and you can see I just adjusted again. So I'm just constantly readjusting it. So we are done with that side. And you see I had a little bit of extra, not quite an inch, so I'm glad I gave myself that little bit of extra. All right, I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process now for the other side. And then I'm going to go and lay my quilt back out and measure just like we did to add the top and bottom border. And at that point, I'm going to go ahead and then press everything up and then repeat the process to add our outer borders. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that, and then we'll take a look after I get that all sewn up. Before we take a final look at our finished quilt top, I wanted us to go ahead and press our binding. I like to get this done because after you finish quilting, the last thing you want to do is go back to this step. So let's just go ahead, and I purchased this one time at, I think I got this at Quilt in a Day when they had a special on them. And oh my goodness, I absolutely love it for binding. So we have our strips, so whatever width you have, whether it's 2.5, 2 1/4, whatever you use, you just go ahead and fold that in half, wrong sides together. And then I go ahead and push it through here. And I do really try to pay attention and make sure it's exactly 2.5, that it's exactly lined up. And I usually go ahead and just press this one piece to get it started. Okay, and then I pull this through. And this is so neat. So all I'm gonna do is put my iron down, and I just slide this through. Now as I'm doing that, I'm focused on where I basically align my binding where it's kind of hitting the edge of this on both sides, and you just keep feeding it through. And again, I'm pulling it on the other side here, and I'm making sure it's kind of going in as straight as I can get it. And again, I'm making sure that the two ends match up nicely. Okay, the binding is done, and now let's take a look at our final quilt top. So all the borders are on. We've got our inner border, our outer border, our blocks, and look at this. All that hard work has paid off with a beautiful quilt top. So what's next? The next step in our process, like I said, we're very close. We finished our quilt top today, but we are not done. The next step is to baste our quilt. Some people pin baste. That's what I used to do. However, I tried adhesive spray one time, and since then, that's how I do it now. In addition to that, though, you'll need your backing, and the backing, so your quilt measures, the finished quilt measures 58.5 by 66.5. So you'll want to add, I would say, at least 3 to 4 inches all around. 66 by 73. That's what you're gonna need for both your batting and your backing. For my batting, honestly, I use 80/20. I'm not loyal to any certain brand. I go with what's on sale, as long as it's an 80/20. So twin size batting, and then like I said, your backing. And for my backing, what I'll be using is, I had some leftover yardage from the Rosemary Cottage collection, which is what I use primarily for this project. So I went on ahead. I've already I've already cut it and measured it and added, created my seam, so it's ready to go. So that's what we will be doing in our next sew along, is we're going to be basting. So the adhesive spray that I use primarily is the 505, and so I use the aerosol 505 to actually baste the quilt. And then I also use the 505 glue stick when we actually do our binding. And I'll show that process. This has really changed the quality of my binding by having this. So I recommend both of these. Now I will tell you, I am playing around right now. I'm not going to do it on this quilt, but I am playing around with the idea, I can't believe I'm saying this, of using good old-fashioned Elmer's glue, the washable school glue. I've been doing a little bit of research on this, and I'll let you know what my thoughts are. There's some real advantages to being able to use this, over this, one being cost. I mean, this is a whole lot cheaper than this is. So anyway, I'm gonna play around with these before I would recommend them. I'll let you know what I think. But for this project, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and use what I normally do, which is the 505 adhesive spray aerosol. And then for the binding, I'll be putting it on with the glue stick. Other thing I was gonna show is the binding. So we got it pressed up and ready to go, and I don't use anything special. I just wind it on itself and put a pin in it. One other thing I wanted to mention, and we touched on it on our last video, is what are we doing next? And I mentioned it, but I want to just mention it again. I'm planning to do a couple of different quilting projects for 4th of July. Both of these are by Layla Boutique. One of them is called Miss Americana, and it's just little flags, rectangles, squares, pretty simple. This is going to be a really nice one. If you're interested in making this one, you can check out her website, Layla Boutique, and get either a print or PDF version of these patterns. The other one that I'm planning to do it's definitely a little more challenging than Miss Americana, and it's another one by Layla Boutique. It's called Grand Finale. Now I say it's more challenging than this one, but it's really not that hard. If you just finished making this Simply Sweet pattern with us, this is no harder than that. It's basically just some sawtooth stars and some half square triangles. It is not too difficult. So I hope you join us for this one as well. So Grand Finale, if you are interested in making this one, same thing, it should be available at your favorite quilt shops. Certainly it's available on her site online. Again, this is one you can probably pull from your stash. If you're going with that Americana look, it's basically some red, white, and blue fabrics. And you can really do some shading. So do a variety of blues and reds, and even I'm working on another one right now where they even bring in a touch of pink and not just straight red, and a little bit of teal and aqua to go in with the blue. So you could really be adventurous on this one. I love this one though because of how it turns the stars into fireworks. I've wanted to make this pattern for a while. If you're interested in joining me and sewing along with me, now would be the time to go ahead and gather your things and join me. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to see your progress, how your Simply Sweet project is coming along. Feel free to share it with us. If you haven't already, join our Facebook group, Quilts Bloom at Dawn, and we'd love to see your progress on this project or any other projects you're working on. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Quilts Bloom at Dawn. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a like. Until next time, happy quilting.